You are 18. You come to Westminster with dust on your boots and your father's small seal in your pocket. The halls smell of tallow, wet wool, and rain. Servants move like streams through stone. Doors open. Velvet swallows sound. At the feast you keep your head low. Jewels burn like coals. The king's gaze rests on you as on a candle. He intends to shield. A word is spoken. A place is made. You are moved closer to the heat. Before dawn a summons. You carry water that smokes in the cold. Hinges do not complain. The guard's eyes slide away. Behind curtains the chamber waits. Quiet and deep. A brazier glows. The walls wear night. His cloak lies across a chair. You stand as you were taught, straight and spare. He speaks softly. You answer with careful yes and careful no. A robe settles on your shoulders. It fits without measure. It is heavier than your old life. From that hour, the ritual begins. You rise early. You warm linen. You place the cup where light will not strike. You recite verses until the day breathes. He lets your voice start the hours. In council, he brushes dust from your sleeve. That is not there. At table, his hand pauses near the place you stood. The court watches. The word travels like smoke. Favorite. A softer word follows it. Shadow. You learn the other language. You follow only so far. You wait outside doors that hear everything. You see without looking. Gifts come as kindness and chain, a ring you did not earn, a purse that quiets old debts, a bed in a nearer room. You tell yourself it is service. You tell yourself it is honor. Your thoughts walk in circles and return to their start. Pages step aside. Nights recalculate their smiles. Requests arrive dressed as prayers. You say you are only a servant. Your presence speaks louder than your denial, and the hall listens. The queen's ladies pass like cold swans. They leave a chill. Their eyes measure your days. In a gallery of winter light, you see her once. You stop at distance. She looks at tapestries as if they bled. She does not speak. Silence becomes a cord that tightens through the house. Priests bow and whisper to stone. Confession turns your name into a weight. A word is weighed that means sin and threat. You did not learn to walk under knives called glances. You learn now. You fold linen without wrinkle. You listen for the shift of a boot. You learn the scent of rain in his cloak. You map a life that is not yours. He stands at the center. You move at the edge. At night you count the doors between your bed and the gate. The number changes as if the palace breathes. Men who laughed last week now watch themselves when you approach. Compliments arrive like ladders with missing rungs. Shadow feels like a title. Favor feels like a coin that ties to a string. You mark the places where no one sees you. The stairs dark turn. The pillars blind side. Rosemary lifting clean hands in the wind. In those brief shelters you remember a yard, a mare, a fence, the looseness of breath that belonged to no one. The bell moves the air. You return. A parchment waits one evening with your name. Rights are granted your house could not buy in 3 lives. Your hands shake. Gratitude rises with fear. Kneeling tastes like worship and surrender at once. You rise. The river mutters as if telling a story it cannot change. An elder lord calls you son in passing. A younger spills wine so it creeps toward your boot. You read these acts as stones with notes tied on. The queen does not summon you. Her absence is an audience. The court listens for an unseen door. Rumor learns to walk. It stands beside you when you lace a sleeve and whispers that sleeves can be ropes. Dawn returns you to the law you now serve. Water, linen, words. A pause longer than a pause should be. You would call it duty if the word did not tremble. He smiles and rooms tilt. Some lean to bask, some lean to burn. You are the sundial no one admits they watch. You press your palms to the table to feel grain and weight. You say true things endure storms. You say storms pass. Nights repeat until repetition becomes prayer or prison. You do not pick the name. You only keep the steps. Still, you hold a small room made of breath and memory. In that room, you are only a son who tied girths and carried water to a tired mare. You visit and leave before the bell finds you. This world is a throat that must be cleared before it sings. You are the morning cup. This garden hides pits under flowers. You are asked to walk it with clean shoes, and you are 18, wrapped in velvet that warms and muffles. Footsteps beyond the curtain do not belong to you. You hear them and do not turn. You breathe as the ritual taught. The taper smokes. The bell waits. Somewhere a goose calls from another life. You let that thin cry settle where a shield should be. You stand very still while the room that eats footsteps eats your own, and night closes its hand without a sound. In the morning the yard will smell of iron and frost, and the path will carry you from water to flame. The courtiers will bow and smile thin. The priests will preach of purity with shuttered eyes. Your name will pass from mouth to mouth until it grows teeth. You will answer with service, and service will answer with silence. You will keep the cup steady. You keep your breath small. When the door opens, you step forward as if into snow, leaving sound behind. You rise before the sun. The air in the corridor is cold enough to make your breath visible, and each step toward his chamber feels measured by the weight of eyes you cannot see. The guards know your path. They open the door before you knock. Inside, the fire burns low, and the scent of cedar drifts from the brazier. You cross the carpet on silent feet, carrying the basin, the cloth, the wine that must be poured before the day begins. He sits in the shadows, watching. You kneel. The ritual has no name, yet it governs every hour of your life. You lift the cup with both hands. He takes it without a word. The first sip is yours to witness. The first command will follow. In council, you stand at his side. Your hands remain folded, but your presence is a language everyone understands. He brushes your sleeve as if dust clung there, though there is none. The gesture is small, but it reaches the farthest corner of the hall. Eyes turn toward you. Mouths remain closed, but the message travels. The favorite holds his ear, his gaze, perhaps his heart. At the banquet table, his smile lingers on you too long. The courtiers see it. They turn their goblets to hide their expressions, but the silence between bites thickens. The priests lower their eyes when you pass. Yet in confession, they speak your name as if it were a stain. You hear it in the pauses, in the way servants glance at the floor when you enter. They do not confront you. They let the whispers do their work. The queen's ladies pass you in the corridor like shadows on ice. Their perfume fades behind them, but their words linger. Sodomite. They say it softly, not to accuse, but to anoint the rumor, so it spreads without their hands being seen. You keep walking, head steady, as if the word were not a blade. The king's affection is constant, but it is never free. You learn quickly what can and cannot be refused. You learn that your place depends on an obedience that is not written in any law. A favorite must never ask why. A favorite must never show hunger for anything beyond the next task. A favorite must accept every command as sacred. This is not the loyalty of a servant. It is the submission of someone who has been chosen and who can just as easily be unchosen. Gifts come without warning. A ring with a stone, the color of deep water, a cloak lined with fur from lands you have never seen, a key to a room that stands closer to his than the rest. Each gift binds tighter than the last. You wear them in public, and the court sees them not as rewards but as chains. They weigh your shoulders as much as they warm them. You feel the shift in the air when you enter the hall. Conversations bend away from you. Laughter stops too soon. A lord greets you with exaggerated warmth, his smile stretched thin enough to tear. Another stumbles in his bow, as if lowering his head before you costs him something precious. You answer with measured courtesy, though you understand the truth. Some wish to be close to you for what it might bring them. Others wish to see you fall because it would free them from the sight of you. The days blur into the same slow current. Dawn, basin, cup, verses chosen to fit his mood. The way he looks at you when you speak them tells you whether the day will run smoothly or crack under some unseen weight. You live by signs no one else sees. The set of his jaw, the way he leans forward or away, the rhythm of his breath when you hand him the seal. Your life is not your own, yet it is the most closely watched in the palace. You hear the rumors grow. They move like smoke under a door, seeping into every chamber. Some say you have bewitched him. Others claim you have corrupted him. The words shift depending on who speaks them, but they all end in the same place. The court's appetite for blood. You are both a man and a story now, and the story is far more dangerous. The queen's presence presses against you even when she is not there. Her allies watch from corners, from balconies, from behind fans of lace. They record each glance he gives you, each time your name is spoken in his chamber, each small sign of favor. They are building a ledger in their minds, one they intend to settle. You know it, though you do not speak of it. To name a threat is to hasten it. At night, when the corridors empty and the braziers fade, you return to your room and strip away the velvet. You stand in the dark, listening to the silence beyond your door. Somewhere in the palace, he is still awake. Somewhere else, they are whispering about you. You can feel the web tightening, thread by thread, and you are at its center. The ritual continues, and you obey it, because disobedience would be a quicker death. Some mornings, you wonder what they would call you if the king turned his gaze to another. Would they call you traitor then? Would they erase your name from the records, as if you had never stood at his side? Or would they remember you only as the shadow that had once darkened the throne? These thoughts you bury deep, for even in solitude, the walls may listen. The rituals do not change, but the way they are seen does. What began as service now feeds suspicion. What began as loyalty now fuels envy. You feel it in the way the guards watch you longer than they should, in the way the herald's voice sharpens when announcing your name, in the way the queen's ladies lower their voices when you draw near, as if the air itself must not carry their words to your ears. You begin to understand that survival is not about holding favor. It is about holding it without letting it cut you. You move more slowly. You speak less. You let the king's words cover you like a cloak, but you keep a part of yourself hidden where no one can touch it. That part remembers who you were before velvet, before ritual, before the court learned your name. Yet even that part is fading. The longer you remain in this place, the more you become the role they have written for you. The basin, the cup, the verses, they are no longer acts you perform. They are the shape of your life. You feel yourself disappearing into them. And still, each dawn, you rise. You walk the same cold corridors. You step into the same chamber. You lift the cup with the same steady hands. The king takes it, and the day begins again. Somewhere beyond the palace, the world moves without you. Fields are sown, markets open, rivers rise and fall. But here, time is held in the stillness between his glance and your bow. And in that stillness, you remain what they have made you, the shadow behind the throne, the servant they call corrupter, the figure whose every breath is measured against the law of another's will. You tell yourself this is service. You tell yourself this is honor. But when you close your eyes, you feel the weight of the cup, the press of the velvet, and the cold of the stone beneath your feet. And you know that the ritual owns you now, in a way no one will ever put into words. Centuries will pass, and your name will fade, but the corridors will remember your steps. The walls will remember the silence you kept, and the air will remember the scent of cedar in the morning. You were told to serve without question, and long after you are gone, that silence will still answer for you. You wake to footsteps that do not belong to dawn. The candle is a hard point in the dark, and the chamber holds its breath. A glove taps the door, and a guard enters without waiting. His eyes do not rise. A sealed letter rests in his palm like a small blade. It is not for you. It is for the king, who sleeps with one hand open, as if the realm could lie there and be still. The wax is foreign, blue as river ice. The paper breaks with a dry cry. Names spill. Armies move inside a few lines. He says 3 lords you know and 1 you do not. He does not say yours, you understand. The queen is far away, and also here. Her absence walks the corridors. Another letter arrives before the basin cools. Another after that. Noon drags like a wounded animal. By dusk, the messengers stop announcing themselves. Your name begins to circle the room like a hawk. Voices you trusted give it new feathers. Thief, corrupter, traitor. A word that can fit any sin when hatred needs a door. You are told to stand behind the screen, to be air, to be stone. You obey because every other road ends at a drop. Outside, bakers knead and listen. Smiths lift their hammers and set them down. The river speaks its old sentence and does not stop for crowns. At last, night. You sleep without sleeping. When the latch lifts, it is soft. Hands take you with care, as if care could lighten chain. Your wrists are bound with clean rope. No one strikes you. A list is read that has been sharpened for weeks. It speaks of coins climbing walls that were not yours, of lands that slid across parchment like rain, of counsel in rooms where lamps breathed low. It speaks of a body too near a body that belongs to the realm. You close your eyes. Wheat bends one way. When wind decides, they lead you through corridors that have forgotten your steps. Servants look away to save their names. Someone's hand rises to bless, and then falls. In the yard, a cart waits like a small square ship. You climb without help. Rope finds wood. Wheels speak iron to mud. Streets you rode in silk become a slow river of stone. Windows bloom with frightened light. Dogs sing the hour. In the first market, mothers lift children so the lesson is clear. That is the face, they say without sound. The face that stood where it should not stand. You keep your eyes on the strip of sky between roofs. A man throws a crust that misses. Another makes a sign and cannot finish it. At a church, a bell rings wrong. A priest at the door looks down and away. He whispers the old word for cleansing. The second market breaks into voices that do not agree. Some spit. Some stand with their hands at their sides, holding invisible reins. A woman you once paid fairly for geese cries without letting sound leave her mouth. A boy counts your breaths and loses count. The cart turns where the queen's banner used to kiss the air. The balcony is dressed like a wound. She stands there, carved from winter. Her eyes do not blink. The hall behind her glows like wine. You remember how she crossed thresholds as if they were lines on a sleeping beast. A herald lifts a parchment like a blade and reads the story already learned by heart. It names you, and by naming calls it truth. The crowd is a single animal breathing many kinds of breath. When the reading ends, that breath holds. It holds long enough to hear a pin strike stone. You think of the king, who is not here. You think of his hand once pressing a map to make a kingdom sit still. You do not think of velvet. The rope around your wrists learns your pulse. The guards wait for an order that is already in their bones. The tour must teach corners that have not learned. Rain begins without drama. It writes on your face as if it owned the page. Children laugh, because rain is still rain. You pass the smith's yard where the anvil keeps a private thunder. You pass the baker staring at a crack in his peel. You pass a lane where a dog remembers, and then does not. In the last square, a woman steps out with a bowl of water. A guard raises a hand and lowers it. She holds the bowl so you can see yourself. The water shivers. The face is yours and not yours, narrowed by fear and widened by the eyes of others. You drink, Water is given even to the condemned. Night unrolls further. Torches lift a second sun. Soot paints small stars on your skin. The cart stops at a gate that once wore your name. They lead you not into a court, but into a room of planks and silence. A table waits for words that will not be needed. No judge sits. No jury waits. Men sign papers with careful strokes as if ink could wash what is done. A clerk reads again of theft, of counsel, of a love recast as crime, so the crime can be called clean. You are asked nothing. You are a page already written. You stand. You do not beg. A beggar is offered hope. You are offered a script. Through a slit you see the balcony again, the queen in the same stillness. A swallow sleeps under the eave and stirs once. A strip of linen is tied around your brow, not to comfort, to mark. The knot sits like a small moon. You think of summers that smelled of cut hay. You are brought back to the cart. The streets have learned your name, and now begin to forget it, as waves forget footprints. Breathe. You stand in the shadow of the scaffold before the sun has reached its height. The air smells of wet wood, trampled grass, and the breath of thousands pressed close together. You are stripped beneath the open sky, your skin bare to the wind and to their eyes. A murmur moves through the crowd like a tide. Children are lifted onto shoulders. Old men lean on staffs. Merchants, beggars, soldiers, and widows all watch, as if the fate before them will write itself onto their own lives. You feel the cold on your scalp. Before you understand, your hair is gone, shorn by the hands of a man who does not look at you. A basket of green rests at his feet. He lifts from it the crown, woven of nettles thick as a hedge. The stems cut fresh, so their poison is alive. It settles on your head like a nest of wasps. Pain blooms sharp and spreading. Each thorn breaks the skin. Blood and sweat carry the sting down to your brow. The priest calls it a crown of repentance. You feel it as a sentence that will last only until you can no longer feel at all. The first chant begins. Latin rolls from the mouths of robed men, their eyes lowered, as if the words themselves are too heavy to meet. Between the verses, the executioners move. They know their craft. They do not rush. Your arms are bound behind you, rope-biting skin that has already learned the nettle's fire. You are lifted to the first stage of the platform, so all may see. Faces blur into a single wall of flesh and eyes. You search for one who might know you, who might remember your name spoken in a room with no witnesses, but the familiar is gone. What stands before you is the hunger of a kingdom come to feed. The blade for the first act is heated in the brazier until it smokes. The crowd leans forward as one. The priest's voice rises over the hiss of metal in air. This is the cleansing of lust, he says, the erasure of a body, unworthy to leave its mark upon the world. Pain floods your center, tearing sound from your throat, but the roar that answers is not pity. It is approval, a tide crashing against the scaffold. You are shown what has been taken. Then it is cast into fire, the smoke curling upward like an offering no god would claim. The chant resumes. You are lowered to the boards, your chest rising too fast, the nettles burning deeper with every heartbeat. The air tastes of ash and iron. The next act comes without warning. A hook catches in the rope at your wrists. You are drawn upright, then higher, until the strain carves fire through your shoulders. The breath in your lungs turns thin. Your vision narrows. At the count of 40, they release. You fall to knees that no longer wish to hold you. Vinegar splashes your face, yanking you back from the edge. The priest reads another verse. The words float above you like blackbirds. Then the knife finds your belly. It is not quick. The cut is shallow at first, coaxing the body to yield. You feel the warmth of what should never see the light. The smell changes. A man with steady hands begins to draw you open. The crowd is silent now, the kind of silence that listens. Your breath comes in pieces. Somewhere a woman cries out, but the sound is pulled away by the wind. The priest names each sin again, binding it to each piece of you taken. The pain is a sea, and you are already too far from shore to see the land. The queen is there, high in her place, her gown still as water, held in a cup. She does not look away at first. Her gaze pins you in the moment, like a specimen in glass. Only when your voice fails entirely does she turn, speaking to someone you cannot see. The absence of her eyes feels colder than the steel. Time becomes strange. The sun tilts in the sky, the shadows leaning long. The acts blur together. The raising, the cutting, the chants, the fire. You try to count them, but numbers lose meaning when they measure only pain. The crown of nettles still bites, though the rest of your body has begun to vanish into a gray that no longer feels entirely yours. At last, they bring the sword. It is clean. The executioner's hands are steady, his face blank. You kneel because you cannot stand. The wood smells of blood and rain. The chant fades, replaced by the sound of the crowd leaning in for the end. Steel rests cold against your neck. You draw a breath and taste the wind. The same wind that moved through the palace gardens, through the open fields beyond the walls, through the streets where your name was once called with respect or fear. The first strike does not finish it. The second nearly does. The third takes the world away. The roar rises like a storm breaking, as if the air itself has been freed. Somewhere the priest closes his book. Somewhere else, a child asks a question no one answers. Your body is no longer whole. The head will be shown to those who were not here. The rest of you will be carried apart, scattered to gates and markets and crossroads, so the lesson can be read in every town. The platform begins to empty. The queen's place is vacant. The sun lowers until its light bleeds gold across the boards. The crowd thins, their voices already turning to other matters. The pain is gone. In its place is only the knowledge of what was taken, not just the body, but the name, the place, the breath that once came without fear. You feel the weight of the crown, still pressing nettles into the skin of the person you were. Somewhere in the trampled grass, a drop of blood sinks into the earth and disappears. You were told this was justice. You were told it was cleansing. You were told it would end here, in the square, in the sight of all. But the silence that follows does not free you. It holds you, as it will hold you for centuries, in the memory of those who watched and did not turn away. You do not end when the blade falls. You continue in pieces, renamed by places instead of blood. Your head is tarred, caged, and lifted to the city gate, where every traveler must look up to pass. Wind learns your face first, crows second, then the children, who point and repeat a rhyme their elders pretend not to know. You hang above tolls and quarrels and greetings, a fixed star, hammered into daylight. The bridge keeper wipes rain from the bars with a rag, counts the coins, glances up, forgets, remembers, forgets. Your right arm goes north, oiled and boxed, raised over stones that remember sieges. Men meeting for contracts say we will stand at the arm, and none laugh. Your left arm travels west where the river fattens ships. Dockers spit and cross themselves, not in hatred but from habit, the reflex of men who swallow orders. One leg keeps vigil near the field where levies gather. Another rides to a market town that once cheered your victories and now sells apples under your knee. 4 years is chosen, a number called fitting. Fitting hardens into law. Children grow tall in your weather and stop asking whose face the iron holds. A baker uses your name to set an hour. Meet me when the head throws shadow on the third stone. You become a clock that does not move. News runs along the roads like nervous deer. They say the queen's triumph has turned and shown its other side. They say her lover speaks now through rope, and the young king writes his name in iron. They say the balcony is empty. In a castle by the marshes, a woman lives with guarded doors and a daylight that never warms. Your gate watches carts arrive with salt and candles and leave with the same. You had thought your end would end. Endings. Instead, it planted them. Clerks bind vellum with neat cords. They comb the lines until history lies flat. They reduce your life to a strip of ink that makes room for new strips. Theft, corruption, unnatural vice. This is the spelling that permits relief. You become a footnote that keeps pace with horses. Yet stones do not read. They recall the weight of scaffold legs, the slip of a wheel, the boy who lost a shoe. The air itself holds the thin shape of the cry you did not finish. Priests who blessed your unmaking walk beneath your cage and speak salvation, as if it were a door they can finally open. The door does not move. A mason looks up from his wall and cannot find the line between justice and theater. A soldier recent from the marches salutes and cannot explain why. Winter returns. Orders are written in rooms that have forgotten your step. Men climb ladders and open cages that screech like waking birds. What can be found is gathered. Your pieces meet roads again, wrapped in linen that does not know whose blood it carries. You are brought to a quiet place near damp trees. You are laid there, in parcels. A prayer is said for form, not for fire. The earth accepts you as seas accept ashes, without refusal, without praise, with an old, even patience. Above, years tilt and turn. Queens are praised and then not. Kings ride out and return, as if time were a circle drawn by hooves. The gate that held you leans a little, as if memory had weight. Travelers ask about the empty iron, and are told it bit a lesson long ago. If you listen where you cannot be, you will hear a mother rush a child past an arch, her hand tight, her pace trimmed to a fear shaped before she was born. You will hear a clerk misspeak your charge, correct himself, and feel wrongness brush his heart like a moth. Your service did not end with the body. It ended later, and even then not all at once, but in the slow unlearning of crowds. Keepers repaint the iron with tar when the sun eats it thin. They climb at dawn, speak to you without meaning to, then climb down smelling of pitch. Vendors rent space beneath the gate. Children invent games that end with a bow to the cage. Travelers sketch the sight on scraps to prove they saw what judgment looks like. Years pass. The queen who set the wheel turning feels it turn. A scaffold rises for the man at her side, and the people read symmetry. She does not die, but doors are locked, and her days thin to corridors. Your head overlooks these reversals. At last, a clerk writes a release. The custom has eaten its season. Men bring ladders and sacks, and a cart that does not jolt. What can be named is lowered. What cannot is named anyway, because endings require words. Someone offers money to keep a peace and is told no. The road receives you again. The burial is small. Earth answers softly. A priest uses the shortest prayer he knows. Those who stand there speak of weather and wages. Afterward, the trees hold the shape of the service like a breath. Time combs the town smooth. A mother who once lifted a child to see now tells that child grown, there is nothing to look at. He nods and looks anyway toward the place where looking used to be. At all.